Quick question. Do you actually know why you have the blood type you have? Not the textbook answer. A, B, AB, O, done. The real answer. Because scientists still can't fully explain why the human body sorts itself into 4 completely different biological camps. Not 2, not 1, 4. And the answer takes us back further than agriculture, further than cities, back to a battlefield you can't see, one that's still running inside your veins right now. Somewhere in your bloodstream at this exact moment are molecules shaped by a war that ended thousands of years ago. A war against parasites, plagues, and invisible enemies your ancestors couldn't see but somehow learned to fight anyway. And depending on where your ancestors lived, your blood type could have meant the difference between surviving a plague and being wiped out with everyone you loved. This isn't trivia. This is a survival record written in red cells. Let's find out how it got there. Here's the thing nobody tells you in biology class. Blood type isn't just a medical label for transfusions. It's a fossil, not the stone kind. A living, circulating fossil, still running the same defensive program it was built for tens of thousands of years ago, whether you need it or not. And here's something that should genuinely surprise you. Humanity did not understand blood type existed until the year 1900. Think about that. Millions of years of human evolution, and it took until the turn of the 20th century for anyone to realize why transfusions kept killing people. An Austrian physician named Karl Landsteiner noticed something strange in his lab. When he mixed blood samples from different people, sometimes they combined smoothly. Other times, the red blood cells clumped together violently, like the blood itself was recoiling from an enemy. Landsteiner had accidentally discovered the ABO blood system, and in doing so, explained a mystery that had been quietly killing transfusion patients for centuries. Before his discovery, doctors performing transfusions were playing a game of chance with a system they didn't even know existed. Some patients lived. Some died in agony within minutes. Nobody knew why. Landsteiner won the Nobel Prize for figuring it out in 1930, and the honest truth is, he wasn't discovering something new. He was discovering something ancient, a system that had been running inside every human body for tens of thousands of years, completely unnoticed. So what actually is a blood type? Strip away the jargon and it comes down to this. Your red blood cells are covered in tiny molecular flags, sugars, and proteins sticking off the surface like flagpoles. Type A cells fly one kind of flag. Type B cells fly a different one. Type AB cells fly both. Type O cells fly neither. Your immune system uses these flags to figure out what belongs in your body and what doesn't. Anything without the right flag gets treated as an invader. That's why transfusions can go catastrophically wrong. Give someone the wrong flag and their immune system declares war on their own bloodstream. But here's what almost nobody asks. Why would evolution bother building 4 different flag systems in the first place? Wouldn't it be simpler, safer, even if every human on Earth had the exact same blood type? No transfusion errors. No compatibility issues, no confusion. And yet here we are, 4 systems, unevenly distributed across the planet, and biologists have spent over a century trying to explain why. The leading theory is not comforting. It's called the pathogen resistance hypothesis, and it argues that blood type diversity isn't an accident. It's a defense strategy, forged in exactly the same way as everything else about ancient human survival. Under pressure, from something trying to kill us. Let's start with malaria, because the evidence here is some of the strongest in all of human genetics. Malaria is caused by a parasite that invades red blood cells, and different parasite strains have evolved to prefer certain blood type flags over others. Type O red blood cells, it turns out, are significantly harder for the deadliest malaria parasite to grip onto and invade. Researchers studying malaria-heavy regions of Africa have found type O blood at dramatically higher frequencies than almost anywhere else on Earth. That's not a coincidence. That's natural selection, running in real time, over thousands of generations, quietly deciding who lives long enough to have children and who doesn't. Let that sink in. In regions where malaria has been a relentless killer for millennia, having the wrong blood type wasn't an inconvenience. It was a death sentence written into your biology before you were even born. And having the right one wasn't luck. It was inheritance, passed down from every ancestor who survived long enough to pass it on. But malaria is only one battlefield. There were others. Cholera is another one. Cholera bacteria produce a toxin that latches onto blood type flags in your gut lining, and type O blood, the the same type that helps against malaria, appears to make people more vulnerable to severe cholera. Researchers studying cholera outbreaks have found that people with type O blood are significantly more likely to develop the most severe, life-threatening form of the disease, which means the same flag that saved your ancestors from one enemy could have made them a target for another. This is where it gets genuinely fascinating, because it means there was never one best blood type. Evolution wasn't optimizing for a perfect answer. It was running a constant, brutal trade-off. Protection against one disease often came at the cost of vulnerability to another. Different regions faced different combinations of pathogens, and different blood types rose or fell in frequency depending on which threats were winning the local war at any given time. Smallpox is another suspect in this story. Some researchers believe the smallpox virus may interact with blood type flags in ways that affect infection severity, though the evidence here is less settled than with malaria. What is well documented is this. Throughout history, in region after region, waves of infectious disease have swept through populations and left behind a very specific, very non-random genetic signature. The survivors weren't random. Their blood carried a pattern. Now here's where the geography gets genuinely remarkable. If you map global blood type distribution, you don't get a random scatter. You get something that looks almost like a weather map of ancient disease pressure. Type O dominates in parts of South America and West Africa, regions with brutal historical exposure to certain parasites. Type B shows unusually high frequencies across parts of Central Asia, regions with their own distinct disease history. Type A clusters more heavily in parts of Europe and Japan. These aren't cultural preferences. Nobody chose their blood type based on regional fashion. This is the accumulated outcome of thousands of years of some people surviving epidemics and others not, generation after generation, quietly reshaping the genetic makeup of entire populations. Your blood type, in other words, is not really about you. It's about which epidemics your specific ancestors happen to survive, in the specific place they happen to be standing, over thousands of years you will never know the details of. Now let's talk about the other blood system almost nobody understands, the one hiding in plain sight every time someone mentions being positive or negative. The raw factor. And this one comes with an origin story stranger than the ABO system. Genetic research suggests the raw negative variant may trace back to ancient interbreeding between early modern humans and archaic human relatives, quite possibly Neanderthals, tens of thousands of years ago. Raw negative blood is rare globally, but it clusters at unusually high frequencies in specific populations, particularly across parts of Europe. Researchers are still working out exactly why this variant persisted instead of disappearing, since raw incompatibility between a mother and her unborn child can actually create serious medical complications. Complications that, before modern medicine, could be fatal. A trait that carries real reproductive risk usually gets eliminated by natural selection quickly. The fact that it didn't disappear suggests it must have been providing some kind of advantage powerful enough to offset that risk, something researchers are still actively trying to fully understand, which means somewhere in your ancestry, if you carry this variant, there may be a genetic echo of contact between our species and another human lineage that no longer exists anywhere on Earth except inside people like you. Before we go further, let's clear something up, because there's a popular myth about blood type that has nothing to do with any of this. In parts of East Asia, particularly Japan and South Korea, there's a widespread belief that blood type determines personality. Type A people are supposedly meticulous and anxious. Type O people are supposedly bold and confident. It's taken seriously enough that some Japanese companies have reportedly factored blood type into hiring decisions. Here's the problem. There is no credible scientific evidence supporting any link between blood type and personality traits. None. Multiple large-scale studies have tested this directly and found no meaningful correlation. This isn't ancient survival wisdom. It's a 20th century cultural belief that latched onto real biology and turned it into something biology never actually claimed. The real story of blood type isn't about who you are. It's about who your ancestors managed to survive being. Think about what that means. Your body isn't just an individual fighting individual battles. It's part of a population-level defense system, thousands of years in the making, where the very existence of different blood types across the species was itself a kind of immune strategy, spread across millions of people instead of concentrated in one uniform, exploitable design. A parasite that could beat every blood type at once never had the chance to exist, because the population never gave it a single, unified target. So why does any of this matter to you? Personally, scrolling through a video on your phone in a world with hospitals and refrigeration and clean water? Because your blood type is proof of something most people never think about. Proof that you are not a blank slate. You are the end result of an unbroken chain of survivors, stretching back tens of thousands of years, each one facing a specific, brutal, invisible war, and each one somehow making it through long enough to pass something down. Your blood type is a message from that chain. A message that says, whatever tried to kill your ancestors here, in this exact combination, didn't win. We tend to think of evolution as something that happened to other creatures in other eras, distant and abstract. But your blood type is evolution happening to you, right now, encoded in a molecular flag you've probably never thought about since a nurse asked for it on a form. It's not decoration. It's not random. It's a record of ancient warfare, written not in stone or bone, but in the very cells keeping you alive at this moment. Every time someone gets a transfusion, doctors are not just matching a label. They're matching two different ancient survival strategies, making sure one doesn't mistake the other for an enemy. Every time epidemiologists study new disease outbreaks, they check blood type distribution because the ghosts of ancient plagues are still shaping who gets sick and who doesn't. The war never fully ended. It just went quiet. You didn't choose your blood type. You didn't earn it. It was handed to you by people who never met you, who lived and died in circumstances you will likely never fully understand, fighting enemies with no name, using nothing but the blind, patient machinery of survival and inheritance. And it's still inside you, right now, quietly running a program written by a war you'll never see, for a battle that, for you, may already be over. But your body doesn't know that. It's still standing guard.